Janesville, welcome to Park Place Views. I'm Maggie Hrdlicka, Management Information Specialist for the City of Janesville. Thanks for tuning in to Park Place Views, our monthly program where we highlight what's going on in the City of Janesville, your local city government. As always, I'd like to thank JATV for helping us produce this program. On the last episode of Park Place Views, Carly Seward sat down with the Director of Public Works, Paul Woodard, Operations Director, John Whitcomb, and Utilities Director, Dave Botts, and they talked about winter weather in Janesville, everything related to weather and the Public Works Department. If you missed that program but would like to see it, you can find it on the city's website under the Publications and Videos page, or you can find JATV's YouTube page. But today I'm joined by City Manager Mark Freitag and Finance Director Tim Allen, and we're going to talk about the 2015 City of Janesville budget, as well as some other finance-related issues in the City of Janesville. You might recall that we met Mark before on the first episode of Park Place Views, but to remind you, he joined the City of Janesville team in December of 2013 as City Manager after a 25-year career in the U.S. Army. Tim Allen was hired as Finance Director for the City of Janesville in July of last year, and he previously worked for many different private sector companies as the controller. Welcome. Thank you guys for being here today.
Thanks for having us, Maggie. Thanks.
Yeah, and for the opportunity to talk about the budget and the Janesville's finances. So I did talk a little bit about your past, but if each of you could give us a little bit more background so we can get to know you a little bit better. Let's start with Mark.
Yeah, Maggie, as you said, 25 years in the Army. And I was up in Alaska and on my last duty assignment and decided it was time to retire. So, I essentially, put the 25-year career behind me and decided, what was it that I was going to do, in retirement, but not wanting to fully retire. And so, having been the garrison commander at Fort Hood, Texas, I thought that a career or a second career in city management would be a good one to pursue. And so after a few applications and an interview or two, I got hired on here in Janesville, arrived in the month of November in 2013, started work in December of 2013, and then spent really the last year working on two big projects for the council. One was establishing a community vision coupled with an organizational mission, organizational values, and most importantly, a community strategic plan for the city so that the city can move forward over the next 5 years. And we did that between January and June, and then we moved into this budget process. And it was a big undertaking, especially for me as a new city manager and Tim as a new finance director in the city. But we spent the last really 5 months between July and the end of November working on the 2015 budget.
Okay, well, thanks for being here. How about you, Tim?
As you mentioned, been in the area here for a number of years. My career's been accounting and finance focused. Started with public accounting, getting out to see a number of different clients and how different organizations operate. Then I moved into private manufacturing, got to work with the different companies and the different products that we made. And that was all fun and exciting. But this is my first foray into governmental accounting. The first 6 months have been exciting and learning a lot. And I look forward to many more years with the team here.
Great. Well, again, thank you both for being here today. And Mark, you mentioned, the budget process starts in July. It seems to me that we talk about the budget all year long. Can you just run through the basic budget development process in the City of Janesville?
Yeah, and it truly is a year-long process, but it really starts from a city perspective for the 2015 budget. And I'm going to pull up a slide here, which is going to help us kind of understand that. But it starts in July and it continues through early December. And as the graphic that we're looking at right now kind of portrays, the first thing that we have to do from a budget perspective is we need to establish what are our parameters, what are the things that we want to achieve with the 2015, in this case, budget. And so we did that in July. We thought of those things that were things that we absolutely had to do and we thought were critical, and then those things that would be nice to do, and if we can achieve them, great. An example of something that was critical, bottom line is we did not want to lay anybody off in 2015. We wanted to make sure that we kept the City of Janesville team intact. And then there were those nice to do things, and one of the nice to do things was, in addition to a merit pay program for administrative employees. It would have been nice to have established a 2% COLA pay increase, cost of living allowance increase for administrative employees. And we weren't able to get there on that one. But that's kind of the difference between those must-dos and those nice-to-dos, if you will. We started out with that budget parameter in July of 2014. And then we sat down with the city staff. And oh, by the way, we got the council to buy off on that. And to agree with those parameters that we established. But then we took it to the staff and we said, okay, this is the budget process that we're getting ready to start. These are the things we must do. These are the things we'd like to do. And knowing that we were starting off the budget cycle with a $500,000 shortfall, we knew that we were going to have to give somewhere. And so we told the staff, as you go back and you look at your budget projections for 2015, we want you to make sure that you come back to us with an up to 10% reduction, some items that could reduce your budget by 10%. And so that was an emotional ask, if you will, of the department heads and the division heads, but it was a good drill for the city to work through that. So we sent them back to their departments and divisions. We asked them to return to Tim and I, and they briefed us on what their projections were, what their proposal was for 2015, where they could cut, and where they really could not cut. And so we did that during the month of August and into September. We really, kind of reconciled at the end of September, and then we moved on in the month of October of prepping what becomes the city manager proposed budget to the city council in mid-October. And so we presented that to them in 3 sessions, 2 sessions focused strictly on the budget, another session focused more on the capital improvement plan and how it relates to the strategic plan. And then at that point in time, the council's got it. It's theirs to work with. They can either add or subtract items, if you will, almost a line item veto. But they didn't do a lot of that, which was good for us. Made it easier. And then we took it to the public. And so there are 2 sessions that are laid out in the month of November then, where there's an opportunity for public hearing and an opportunity for the public to come in and talk to the council about things they are concerned about, either that we're spending money on or things that they think we're not spending enough money on and that we should add more money to the project. And so we went through that during the month of November, and in that second meeting, November, I think it was on or about the 24th of November, at a council meeting, the council adopted the final budget, and then we come back in early December after they approve that budget and they adopt it. Then we have to come back and we have to set the tax rate, and so it's a long process, July to early December, and then there are some things that you have to do after the fact to kind of police up, if you will. But it's a long process, and one of the lessons learned, we did a budget after action review in mid-December, kind of looking back on what went well, what didn't go well, if we were going to change things, what should we change, because we're always interested in continuous process improvement. And so one of the things that we looked at was, wow, this is a 5-month process. Is there anything we could do to shorten it or to make it as effective but maybe more efficient? And so that's one of the things that we're going to take a look at as we start to plan for the 2016 budget, is can we reduce the length of that budget timeline?
Okay. Yeah, long process, but in
It
the
is.
end you end with a budget document, and I know it's also a long document, about 200 pages if I recall correctly.
Right.
Tim, how do you decide on what is included in the physical budget document?
A budget is it's our financial plan for the coming year, and by statute we have to include some required items. That includes summaries of what the revenues and expenditures are going to be for the coming year, but also some details, what's going to go through the general fund. That includes details of salaries and operating supplies and the capital that we're going to spend. And we have to go through that by department and division. But we also go beyond. But one of the most notable items in the budget in the general fund is what is the property tax levy going to be. And of course, that to most listeners, that's going to be the biggest item out there too, most important to them. But we also go beyond that, and we not only budget the general fund, but we also budget the different types of funds, the proprietary and the different special funds throughout the city, and we'll talk about those in a minute.
Okay. Well, it sounds like there's some interesting stuff in there, but let's be honest with ourselves. probably pretty unlikely that many people, if anybody, is reading the whole budget document. So if anyone's interested in looking for the highlights of the budget, major changes from the previous year, Mark, where would they go about finding that?
Yeah, there's a great, if you will, executive summary right up front in the budget document called the transmittal letter, and it's essentially a letter from me, the city manager, to the council that essentially lays out, that we are presenting the budget to you, but more importantly, some of those major muscle movements, as far as where is money spent in what percentages across the different funds that we're working with, and it's right up front in the budget document. So then the question is where do you find the budget document? And you can go online. It's posted on our website. So just in the search mode, type in 2015 budget, and it will take you to the link. And then when you open up that document, right at the front, maybe the first 2 to 3 pages are all dedicated to that transmittal letter. And that's really, if you want to get kind of the executive summary, that's where you need to go.
Okay, well, can you give us a little highlight from that? What were some of the major changes in the 2015 budget?
Yeah, well, I would tell you that the biggest thing that we achieved in the budget was, first of all, we said we had these must-dos, and these nice-to-do items. We laid those out, and they're right up front in that transmittal letter. But the challenge for us this year, as I mentioned earlier, is we started out with a $500,000 shortfall. Meaning that what our projected expenses were going to be were $500,000 than what our projected revenue stream was going to be into the city. And so the goodness is that one, Tim and I were looking at the budget with a brand new set of eyes, and so we were able to see historically, as you look at 2013, 2014, and projected for 15, are we overestimating? And so this fresh set of eyes that both of us brought to the process were able to make sure that we weren't essentially overestimating, what our costs were going to be for the year. And so we saw some reduction in savings there. But more importantly, we took a look at, how do we increase our revenues to offset, that $500,000 shortfall in expenses. And what we realized is that there were a whole lot of fees that the city charges that had not been updated in a while. And so we took a look at those fees, how long it's been since some of them have been updated, and in some cases it was more than 10 years since the city had raised a fee in a particular area. So we reviewed the fees, and essentially those that haven't been updated in a while, were obviously the things that we were looking at first. But then we compared what we were currently charging for some of our fees and how they related to, local costs. And an example of that where we made up a significant chunk of change was the rates that we charge when we transport people via ambulance. We found out that, we were not competitive with the charges in the surrounding areas, or the fees in the surrounding areas. And so we were able to increase our fees for 2015, and that made up additionally some of that $500,000. And so the good news is that from a city perspective, not only were we able to not lay somebody off, which was one of our big must-dos for the budget, but we really had no significant change to services or programs. And so when you look at the things that the city provided in 2014, no major change to the services and programs that we offered in 2015, and that was huge. That was in our nice to do category, and we were able to achieve that, and so that was good news.
Great. Now earlier, Tim, you alluded to the general fund.
Right.
We talk about the general fund, we talk about all these other funds. Can you kind of explain what the difference is between some of these funds?
Okay. As we look at some of the different funds that we have throughout the city, the general fund has to capture everything that is not mandated to be captured in its own fund. So it's going to cover a variety of city services, from economic development, neighborhood services, fire, accounting, general management of the city, public buildings, parks, and so on. And the funding for this comes from a variety of sources. That will include property taxes. That's going to be the major item. It's about 70% of the funding coming in. It also includes some state shared revenues that the state sends our way. And also some fees, as Mark was talking about, which can be building permits or some of the participation fees for people participating in the different recreation programs. We also have other funds. The enterprise funds are treated more like a business. Not that we're out to make money, but they're operated like businesses are. This can include our transit service, which is our bus service. So that'll serve the people who need to get to their jobs, their education, shopping, or other trips around town. And that funding comes predominantly from government or federal grants. We also have some sponsorships. We also have some advertising on the sides of the buses. And of course, fare box revenue, people buying their tokens to ride on the bus. On the utility side of things, we've got our water and wastewater programs, and these are also operate like a business. And these we charge fees to residents or users of those services. So people that have water coming into their business or home, or the wastewater, and we charge fees for those. Those, along with the sanitation fund, which is down below here in the special funds, these items get charged to residents on what's called the combined city services bill, but most of us call it the utility bill. And then we also have some special revenue funds, such as the library, JATV, the rent assistance program, and sanitation, and including amongst others. These also have a variety of funds to them. Sanitation is included on that utility bill, that we just mentioned, and things like the rent assistance is funded by the federal government through grants.
Okay, so how does that fund structure, how does that compare with the private sector?
It's a lot different. Within a company, we might slice and dice things by department or area within the business, or even maybe product lines, but nothing to this extent.
Okay.
So we've got a number of departments, a number of divisions here, and then also funds. So there's a lot more detail, a lot more information to go through as a city to be able to budget what we're going to be spending in the general fund or other areas.
Okay, makes sense. Now, for both of you, this past year was really your first time doing a local government budget. And Mark, I know you've probably gone through many budget processes in your career, but how was it going through the first city budget? How do you think the process went?
Yeah, I think it went exceptionally well. Very, very pleased with Tim's ability to come in as a brand new finance director. I think your official first date was 1 July.
Correct.
And we were already starting the budget process, and so Tim was able to come on board, bring a fresh set of eyes, take a look at how our systems were working, why we were doing the things that we were doing, and oh, by the way, still look at it objectively and say that doesn't make any sense, and how do we how can we make that better for 2015 for the city of Janesville? But then equally, we had the department heads and directors who stood up like you would expect a team to do, and that's what I'm so pleased with is that this was really a team effort where everyone kind of rose to the occasion, and where there were times when Tim or I didn't understand why we were doing the things that we were doing, or what the rules were from a state statute perspective, or from a city or council policy perspective. They were the ones who spoke up and said, hey, you guys need to know this is why we do it this way, or this is the correct way to do this in this order, X, Y, Z. But it was really a team effort. And so as a city manager, to come into an organization, to go through that budget the first time around with a new finance director, and to have the team kind of rise to the occasion and work well together and take care of the two new guys is huge. And I think it speaks volumes about the kind of employees and the leadership team that we have in the city.
Great. Tim, do you have a similar assessment to Mark, being your first public sector budget?
Oh, definitely. I agree with everything he said there. It was a great process, learning curve for the new people coming in, especially me, getting used to the governmental treatment of things. But with Mark's leadership and the team coming together, helping the new guys learn and see what all the different things that we offer as a city and what the costs are behind it. Some things were surprising to us, different DNR charges and so on. But yeah, great learning process and great team that helped us through that.
Okay, good. And now Mark mentioned earlier that you can find our 2015 budget online at our website, which is www.ci.janesville.wi.us/2015 budget. But if someone doesn't have access online easily, is there anywhere else that they can get the budget, Tim?
There are two other spots where they can get besides online. One is going to be coming to the front counter of the clerk's office in the municipal building. We've got a couple hard copies there that people can come in and borrow. And then they can also come to the library, and we've got a couple copies there that they can also borrow.
Okay, or come to the library and get online and
Exactly.
see it there. Yeah, okay, great. Now, Tim, in the accounting division, I know you guys really have two major documents, both of them really long. So you have the budget, which we've talked a lot about, and then the comprehensive annual financial report, or the CAFR, we call it.
Right.
What's the difference between the two documents?
The budget is our plan and our best estimates of what we're going to be collecting as revenues and spending as expenditures for the coming year. That's going through all the detail, planning, and deciding what we're going to do for the coming year. The CAFR is coming back after that year is done and reporting how did we do against that budget or that plan. Did we collect the revenue that we expected? Did the state pass on state shared revenues as we thought? Did people participate in the recreation programs and other things? Did we spend the money as we thought? Did we have the employees? Did we have the operating supplies? Did we have fuel for the buses? And did those things cost more or less than we anticipated? So really wraps up how did we do as a city. And the CAFR also not only looks at the current year that just finished, but also prior years so people can see a trend on how we're doing as a city and are we fiscally responsible or not. And Janesville is.
Okay, good.
One indicator of that is the city was awarded the Award of Excellence by the GFOA, an independent organization, for the 19th year in a row for the work that is put into the CAFR. And we look forward to continuing that trend and keeping that going.
Great, wonderful. Good document then. Well, Mark, we talked about general fund dollars really comes mostly from the property tax. So once the property tax is collected by the county, where does it go?
Yeah, well, I think we've got a great slide here to kind of talk people through. But what this shows you is that there are 5 taxing jurisdictions that essentially affect every dollar that people pay. And so this chart that you kind of see in front of you is a breakdown of a dollar bill and then kind of showing some change underneath. Based upon it, for every dollar that you as the taxpayer pay, where does it go? And so those 5 taxing jurisdictions are, the city of Janesville, so to support municipal functions, the Janesville School District to obviously, take care of our kids in school, the county, Black Hawk Tech, and then the state itself. And so if you look at this description of a property tax bill distribution and that dollar, if you take essentially a third of it, 34 cents out of that dollar, that's what's coming to the city of Janesville. Another third of it, 33 cents in this case, is going to the school district, and then lesser amounts to the county, Black Hawk Tech, and the state. So the county gets about 28 cents out of every dollar. Black Hawk Tech gets about 5 cents out of each dollar, and then really less than a penny goes to the state. So it's spread across the 5 different taxing jurisdictions. But what it does is, this is what people need to appreciate, because I think a lot of folks, honestly think that when they pay their property tax bill, it's all to support the city, and really it's not. It's really only a third, with another third going to the school district. And so you got to understand that when you pay your property taxes, you're supporting more than just the city. You're supporting the school district, the county, the Black Hawk Tech system, and the state itself.
Okay, great. So for every dollar in property taxes, the city gets about 34 cents. So then that 34 cents, how does that get distributed among different city functions?
Yeah, and so then we've got another breakdown here that I think will be helpful to the listening and viewing audiences, is that we have again a dollar bill there, and so you're kind of wondering, of every dollar that comes to the city then out of that property tax, where does it go? And so if you look at the left side of the dollar, you'll see that about 29 cents for every dollar, a little less than a third, goes to support our police department. And that's our biggest draw or expense for the city, and there's a lot of people that would say that's not where we ought to spend our money. That a lot of people that would say that's where we should spend our money. I'm not the guy that makes that decision. I'm executing, and so as we currently have it laid out for 2015, about 29 cents out of every dollar is supporting our police department and those police officers that are out protecting the citizenry of Janesville. And then if you look just to the right, you'll see about 20 cents is going to support our fire department. And so again, the fire department and police are making up almost half of the city's money that's coming in. And so 49 cents out of every dollar goes to support either police or fire activities here in the city. And then as you continue to work your way across, you'll see that public works is 18 cents out of every dollar. So a lot of folks, infrastructure and roads and things like that are very, very interesting topics that seem to be discussed across the community. But frankly, plowing roads and keeping our streets clean and trimming grass and all those things, it's really only 18 cents out of every dollar. And then you keep working your way across. 10 cents comes here to the library. 10 cents goes to all governmental functions. So the city manager's office, the attorney's office, the clerk treasurer's office, information technology, the accounting division. Those are all run out of general government. And then Parks and Recreation, only 7 cents out of every dollar goes towards Parks and Recreation. And oh, by the way, we are Wisconsin's Park Place, but very, very little chunk out of that dollar goes towards Parks and Recreation. And then as we continue on, community and economic development, only 3 cents for every dollar. The transit system, 2 cents out of every dollar. And then finally, there are some kind of other expenses and accounts that only take up a penny. And so when you break out that entire dollar bill, half of it's going towards police and fire, half goes towards all other things in the city.
Gotcha. Okay. As we talk about property taxes and the budget development process, a term that I hear all the time is levy limits. Tim, can you tell us what do levy limits mean for municipalities in Wisconsin?
Sure. Levy limits were first introduced by the state in 2005 in some form or another, and they started it as a way to restrict the growth in property taxes that were passed on to citizens. It reflected somewhat what inflation was, but not necessarily. There was a range where cities could raise taxes without going to a referendum or something like that. Levy limits were made permanent in 2011 by the Governor Walker, and with this, the most restrictive of the levy limits were put in place at that time too. The restriction is that cities cannot raise property. The minimum increase to property tax is 0%, and then it can grow based upon what's called net new construction, which represents the growth in the city. So is there building going on? Is there development going on? And within Janesville, in 2015, that net new construction allows us to raise taxes by 1%, which doesn't even keep up with inflation, and so that means that we're losing buying power through that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because the cost of everything seems to go up every year. So,
Right.
Something else that has been in the news a lot lately, Mark, is state shared revenue and the portion of shared revenue that Janesville receives from the state of Wisconsin. Can you kind of talk about that issue a little bit?
Yeah, we've got another slide here that might help out. And what I would show you is that as I first came on board, I really didn't pay much attention to this thing called state shared revenue. But that's essentially monies that go into the state, and then the state in turn returns them to municipalities, portions thereof, based upon many different factors. And in 2015 for the city of Janesville, that's about $5 million. So what we discovered though is that this formula for calculating state shared revenue was developed back in the 70s, and it ran, and every year it took in multiple different factors, and it spit out a number that came out to the city. as their state shared revenue or portion of state shared revenue. What's interesting is that the formula was frozen in 2001, and so we essentially froze our profile that determines how they calculate state shared revenue. The state froze that in 2001, and so right now, whether the city has changed or not is not taken into account when they calculate state shared revenue. And frankly, as a new city manager and as a resident, that's troubling because the city today in 2015 is a much different city than it was in 2001. Many different factors that all play into that. We've grown a little bit, certainly. We have a larger, lower income population than we did in 2001. And those are all things that, frankly, I believe should be taken into account and into consideration when we're calculating state shared revenue. So as we took a look at this, we went to the Wisconsin Taxpayer Alliance, and they publish a book or a booklet called Municipal Facts 14. It was published in 2014, hence the 14. But it essentially looks at data that's 2 years old, so it's looking at data that was generated in 2012, but generally maintains consistency in the years. And what we found is that in the city of Janesville, if you take that that amount of state shared revenue, even with today's numbers at $5 million, it comes out to be about $81 per resident. Here in the city of Janesville of state shared revenue. Well, when you compare that to as depicted on the screen in the black portion, it's a very, very small portion. And oh, by the way, so you have a very small portion of state shared revenue coming to the residents of the city of Janesville. Equally, the city has been very, very fiscally conservative over the past 20 to 30 years, and so property taxes are actually quite low in the city too, and that's depicted on the chart as the green bar. And so if you look at that chart, and the Wisconsin Taxpayers Alliance looks at peer communities, and so we're looking at everything from Janesville to Fond du Lac to West Dallas all the way up to Racine. What you're going to see there is that when you take in property taxes, which are low, and a very low state shared revenue payment to the city, Janesville's at the bottom of the list compared to all of our other peer cities. And frankly, that gives me reason to be concerned because I don't think Janesville's getting its fair share. We've been disciplined and fiscally responsible to our residents by keeping property taxes low, but because the calculation is the way that it is, and oh, by the way, because it's been frozen for the past 14 years, that $81 per resident of state shared revenue, doesn't necessarily reflect reality here in the city. And so, what I've done is I've gone to our state legislators and asked them to specifically look at this during this next cycle. I've talked with Senator Ringhand, with Representative Kolste, Representative Loudenbeck, and asked them to, and they all recognize that this isn't fair. But the question is, can we at least turn the calculation back on so that when they do the state shared revenue calculation, that it's reflective of 2015 and not reflective of 2001 Janesville. So I think that's important, and they've agreed to take a look at that within the state legislature, and I'm very happy that they've chosen to take a look at that. Hopefully we see some kind of change here in the coming years, but I think that this chart should be very, very appreciated and understood by our citizenry that Janesville's been fiscally responsible, hence the low property taxes per capita, and oh, by the way, we're getting the short end of the stick compared to our peer cities here in the state when it comes to state shared revenue. And so something needs to change. Janesville should not be at the bottom of the list of 15 peer communities.
Okay, something that you mentioned there makes me think, seems as though there's a conflict in perception out there. You mentioned, and I hear it all the time within the Janesville organization, that we're fiscally conservative. But then when you go outside of the organization, you hear quite frequently that we have a spending problem, that we spend too much on this project or that project. Tim, can you kind of show us how Janesville measures up against these peer cities in terms of spending?
Sure. And when you talk about, or when we hear that the city spends a lot of money, yeah, we do have a large budget. we've got a large population here too, and a large footprint of land that we're covering. And when we talk about peer cities, as viewers can see up on the screen, as the 10th largest city in the state, we want to compare ourselves to other cities kind of like ourselves. So we'll toss Milwaukee and Madison out of that comparison because we're not close to their population. So we'll look at that group of the next 15 cities that have populations between 35,000 and 105,000 to give us that peer comparison. In here, what we do is, as we look at those peer city comparisons, looking across 18 categories of spending. That can include general spending, public safety, debt, property taxes, and so on. As we look across those 18 categories, from high to low, Janesville is first in a few of those categories. We're third in many of those categories. And on the bottom side, we're 6th out of 15 as our low point. So overall, we rank pretty well in our spending compared to our peer cities. And overall, we averaged third. So that's doing pretty well. We're third best amongst our peer cities. A couple examples. In basic spending per capita on here, we can see that Janesville is under $500 per person when the average is up over $600. So we're spending a lot less than other cities roughly our size are spending. So overall, citizens in the city have it pretty well off. We're not taxing at the same rate that other cities do.
Okay, and so that's for our operating spending. What about borrowing? I mean, we do borrow a lot for different projects.
We do, and we borrow for longer term items, things that are going to be in place for several years. Just like at home when we put a roof on our house, we might borrow for that, or we borrow for a house. We have borrowing for fire stations, other buildings, larger assets within the community, like a wastewater treatment plant. That's not something you go out and pay for in 1 year.
Sure.
So as we look at our next slide, our debt per capita, Janesville here is $200 less than the average for cities, and we can see that we're well under the majority of them. So again, we're ranked third best. Overall, we've been very fiscally responsible, borrowing over short term, even for longer term projects, borrowing for the things that we need to do, not just for every project that every citizen might want to do, but something that we see as what's our primary concern as a city. And that fiscal responsibility has rewarded us in that S&P, the worldwide financing ranking company, has awarded Janesville a bond rating of AA, which is very good. And not every city is going to be rewarded with a ranking like that. And that comes back to us as lower interest rates also.
Saving more money down the line. Great.
Right.
Wonderful. Well, we don't have much time left here. Folks at home, if you have any more questions about anything we just talked about, or really anything else for City Manager Freitag or our Finance Director Tim Allen, you can contact them by phone or email at the contact information that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. But gentlemen, I'd like to end with rapid fire questions that are just for fun, but you have to answer them candidly. Let people get to know you guys a little bit better, so I'll ask you both the same questions here. So first, what is your favorite feature of Janesville? We'll start with you, Mark.
Rock River.
Okay. Tim?
The Rock Aqua Jays Water Ski Show.
Okay. How about your favorite community event?
Mine is Freedom Fest.
Freedom Fest. Okay.
The Rock Aqua Jays Water Ski Show.
Okay, you really like those Rock Aqua Jays, huh?
They put on great performance every year.
Great, yeah. How about what is your favorite sports team, professional?
Dallas Cowboys.
The San Diego Chargers.
You guys do know you're in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, how about what's the best and the worst thing about Wisconsin winter?
Yeah. The best thing is that the snow is very dry. The worst thing is that there's a brutal wind that blows here in the winter, and it makes it just doubly cold.
True. How about you, Tim?
The best and worst for me is the snow. On the personal side, I like to get out and cross-country ski, so seeing the snow is great. But then now when I drive to ski trails, I'm thinking about the dollars it takes to clean up the streets.
Different perspective, huh? Okay, do you guys have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our viewers at home? No? Tim, anything?
It's been a great opportunity to come in and join the city and the team with Mark and the rest of the team, and thank everybody who's allowed me to learn and grow in the position.
Great. Well, again, thanks for being here. Thanks for shedding some light on the 2015 budget and other financial issues going on in the city of Janesville. And thanks to you viewers at home for tuning in today, and I hope to see you back next month. We'll be sitting down and talking with Police Chief Dave Moore, talking about a lot of issues related to the Janesville Police Department, including problems with drug abuse in the community, issues with our 4th Ward neighborhood, OWIs, and a whole variety of other topics. So I hope you can tune in again next month. And in addition to Park Place Views, there's ways that you can stay connected to the City of Janesville on a more regular basis. You can always like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, sign up to receive Nixle alerts, and subscribe to our email list where you'll get notifications about snow emergencies, program cancellations, road closures, and much more. For Park Place Views and the City of Janesville, Wisconsin's Park Place, I'm Maggie Hrdlicka. Hope to see you next month.
The City of Janesville, Wisconsin's Park Place. Our mission is to innovatively provide effective municipal services that are responsive to the needs of residents, businesses, and visitors, and delivered in a reliable, efficient manner in order to sustain Janesville as the community of choice. The city workforce has identified 4 core organizational values: adaptability, respect, service, communication. Adaptability. We are creative and flexible in response to our community's changing needs. Respect. We embrace diversity, empathy, and collaboration through a foundation of mutual respect. Service. We serve with kindness, integrity, and professionalism. We are accountable for making ethical and innovative decisions that reflect community-driven goals. Communication. We value transparency through honest and clear communications.
Our staff consists of over 530 employees working around the clock in many different areas. The City Manager's Office, the City Assessor's Office, the City Attorney's Office, the Clerk Treasurer's Office, the Accounting Division, the Human Resources Division, the Information Technology Division, the Police Department, the Fire Department, Economic Development, the Hedberg Public Library, JATV Media Services. The Department of Public Works oversees 7 divisions within the city: Engineering, Operations, Technical Services, Parks, Building and Development Services, Planning Services, Utilities. The Neighborhood and Community Services Department oversees 3 divisions within the city: Recreation, Housing and Property Maintenance, the Janesville Transit System.
The diverse programs and services our staff provides help us achieve our strategic goal: downtown, to position our downtown as a vibrant neighborhood where commerce, culture, entertainment, and history intersect. Economy, to facilitate continued growth and diversification of our local economy. Financial sustainability, to remain a responsive and forward-thinking steward of financial resources. Image and engagement, to strategically communicate the city's strengths, priorities, and initiatives while maintaining trust and confidence through effective engagement. Infrastructure, to build upon the community's foundation of well-planned, maintained, dependable, and sustainable infrastructure. Partnerships, to embrace and enhance collaboration with local, regional, national, and global stakeholders to realize shared success. Performance culture, to cultivate an organizational environment that empowers an engaged, innovative, and diverse municipal employee base. Rock River Corridor, to promote, enhance, and respect the unifying feature of our community, safe and healthy community, to advance safety and overall well-being of residents and neighborhoods through cooperation and encouraging an active lifestyle. We work towards these goals because we believe in the Janesville community's vision statement. Wisconsin's Park Place. Discover the community of choice to realize life's opportunities.